Conscious Co-Creators. My name is Hope Rising. So wonderful to have you here with me. I like to continue to share my own personal journey of ascension, and hopefully there's some lessons learned from my own experience that could help you on your own journey. So today I'd like to talk about 3 different modes of operation on this journey that would really help you have a smooth ride. So I want to talk about 3 states of consciousness. The first one is what I will call the witness consciousness. The second one is unity consciousness, and then instrument consciousness. So there was a meditation that I created. I'm going to put the link below, which really allow us to become an empty instrument and to connect us back to the source with the silver energetic core, kind of like the umbilical cord back to the sacred womb. So I think these 3 states of consciousness are kind of intimately related to that particular meditation. It's one way to really take that meditation into different situations in life as a way of life. So basically, witness consciousness is something that's related to the Rishi self, the Holy Spirit, which I mentioned is our higher self in the 5th harmonic universe where there's no duality or polarity. It's a state of consciousness that will help you transmute or alchemize or neutralize any situations you encounter. But there are certain times when the situation doesn't seem to get resolved, and it's often because we're not fully embodying the witness consciousness. It essentially means being a neutral observer, to be completely non-judgmental, to not even become aware of light or dark, to communicate through the Rishi self, to be able to have the Rishi self of the other person to work with that other person to transform what's happening. So oftentimes when it's not working, it's because we are communicating with the person directly, and our emotional state gets affected. So whenever we're not in a state of positive emotion, our vibration drops, and that's why we're not able to maintain our connection to the 5th harmonic universe. So that's when, even if you can literally say, thank you, Holy Spirit, for working with the Holy Spirit of this person to have them tap back into their divine blueprint, to let go of distortions. If emotionally you're entangled in the conflict, either because you're afraid of the conflict or because you become angry of the conflict, fear or anger, any negative emotion will kind of drag you back down away from the 5th harmonic universe. So in that case, the situation might not get completely reversed. So one way to go back into that neutral observer state that is non-judgmental, fearless, and completely neutral, as if you're an audience watching a movie unfolding, knowing that you're completely safe. What you're looking at is actually a theater. Is to get into a breathing pattern, to inhale for 5 counts and exhale for 5 counts. Try to do that 3 times. So a breathing cycle of 10 seconds has been found to increase your heart-brain coherence, and that's the secret to drastically increase the frequency and the intensity, the potency of your own biofield. So that's one way to immediately kind of correct the situation by raising your own vibration without getting entangled within a conflict that might be causing you fear or anger or sadness. So another aspect of using witness consciousness to alchemize or reverse a situation is that if we do not understand the exact cause of what is happening, oftentimes we can't transform the situation. For example, one time I was stuck at an intersection for 30 minutes and it was bumper to bumper, nothing was moving. And I was hoping to use the technique to somehow help reverse the congestion, but it was not working until somebody kind of pulled right next to me and she lowered her window and started telling me that the light at the intersection had not changed for 30 minutes. So the moment she told me that, all of a sudden the light changed and all the cars started moving. So in this case, the lesson learned was that whenever we don't know the true cause of the situation, I thought there was a congestion, which means that there's more traffic than usual, but that was not the actual cause of what's happening. The actual cause was that the traffic light was not working properly. So a lot of times if you are working with someone to help neutralize the situation, it's very helpful to probe the underlying cause of what's happening. Keep asking questions about why, especially if the situation has spanned across different timelines. When we're looking at things that happened in the past, a lot of times, we can have spiritual bypassing and try not to do the shadow work. If anything that happened in the past is not pleasant, we can just kind of forget about it. Sometimes we do get advice like that, and but the thing is that you seem to be encountering similar situations just through different people. It's almost like a broken record that gets played over and over, like the same storyline that unfolds over and over, just at a different place with a different person. So oftentimes that is a distortion, an energetic blockage that is still trapped within your biofield, within your own template. So one way to work with that is to not think of what happened in the past as gone, because we're living all timelines at the same time. It's all right here, right now. But to know that you can actually change what happened for a particular timeline. And in this case, this is when the unity consciousness comes in handy. The idea of making sure that your umbilical cord is connected to the source and only the source and no one else. So a lot of the situations that keep happening over and over through different people had to do with the power that we had given away, particularly with authority figures. So let's just say if one of your parents was abusive when you were growing up, you could encounter other authority figures, let's just say at work, that seem to be playing out a similar dynamic that you had with one of your parents that was abusive. So instead of using the technique about communicating through the Holy Spirit and the Rishi self to neutralize the conflict, every single time the same storyline gets played out, that is kind of like a Band-Aid. We can also look at going in and removing that energetic cord to this authority figure that has power over you. And the true source of that is actually one of the parents that was abusive in that particular case, instead of the authority figure at work that seemed to be playing out a similar dynamic. So that has a lot to do with healing the inner child. So a lot of the distortions and blockages in the harmonic universe 1 are stored in the 3 lower energy centers, and those 3 centers had a lot to do with our upbringing and conditioning as a child. So as a child, we didn't necessarily have the agency to not agree with the treatment that we received. So if you were emotionally or verbally or physically abused as a child, at the time you were powerless. You rely on your parent for survival. So you're not, unless you're willing to just run away and become homeless, you had to bow down to mistreatment in order to survive. And if that particular dynamic now is not recognized as unacceptable and released, even if you have forgiven the parents that was abusive, that particular energetic core will continue to stay with you and influence other authority figures' interactions with you. So it's almost like the umbilical cord back to the source, to the sacred womb that nourishes you by providing you with the right people, money, and resources, was at one point distorted to become an umbilical cord to an abusive figure. And this person was used as an instrument by other forces that were there to try to lower your frequency, to try to induce pain into your life, just so that it will be hard for you to share your life with the world. So because timeline exists all at once, even though it appeared that the childhood was in the past, if you interact with your parents now as an adult and you encounter a similar situation, it's very important to call that out. Even if your parent is not willing to recognize what happened or admit that he or she did something wrong, it's very helpful to point it out and confront it. From your end, you become your own parent. Essentially, you're saying that it was okay at that time, but not this time. Whatever I'm receiving is not acceptable to my inner child, and I'm here to intervene and advocate on her behalf. It doesn't mean that I do not forgive you, because I know what's being projected out towards me is not who you truly are. So you recognize how they are an instrument, a neutral instrument being used by something else. But instead of bowing down to what's happening and tolerating the abuse because your parent has, certain power over you. Of course, when you are a child, they do have power over you. But when you're an adult, this is the opportunity to call it out, to help them wake up to what's happening. Because oftentimes they didn't know that they were being used as an instrument by something else that is trying to bring your frequency down so you can shine your light and share it with the world. So this is where we want to be very clear about witness consciousness, instrument consciousness, and unity consciousness. When we look at another individual, sometimes there's something called discernment that is very important for me, at least during my journey. Oftentimes when I wasn't able to discern what's happening, my body does tell me the truth, but my mind might not be able to tell what's happening immediately. But you will feel drained immediately if what's in front of you is not good for you. So even if the person is really pleasant and you really want to engage with the person, you will notice how you immediately feel heavy and tired. So there is this thing called the cranial sacral rhythm that's happening between our tailbone and our crown. So one way to allow your biofield to tell you if whatever you would like to do, or if this person is actually aligned with your journey and helping to raise your frequency of vibration, is to see if it helps you expand your biofield. So you're going to feel this rhythm of expansion with your chest opening up forward, with your arms and whole body opening up, versus contracting with everything coming back in. So it'll be open in front and close and back. So as you're kind of contemplating on whether you should go after a particular opportunity, whether you should engage with a particular person, you can always tune into your body to see if it's leaning forward, expanding with the chest open, or leaning backward, contracting with the chest coming back in. So just know that every single person is an instrument, and if you don't know what they're connected with, if your witness consciousness is not able to discern what they're connected with, usually the wisdom of the body will be the best way to kind of hone our discernment. And another thing is that whenever we are in a situation where we feel entangled with human emotions that are being stirred up by the conflict or any particular interaction, it's very helpful to become a neutral observer, the witness consciousness that can have this panoramic view of what's happening, so that you can transmute the situation knowing that you're safe and that you're not involved. But in another kind of scenario, you can also imagine yourself becoming an instrument, a character that can play a totally different script at any time. So perhaps you are your parents' daughter or son, but during this particular conflict, you could also take on a different character, which is an advocate for your inner child, and intervene and point out whatever abusive interaction you used to have as a child is actually not acceptable. But this recognition doesn't mean that you're not forgiving your parents. You are forgiving your parents because you know that's not who they are. There are instruments being used by certain energetic entities to try to bring your frequency down. So I hope this is one way for you to start to get to the roots of any sort of repetitive scenarios that keep happening wherever you go, whoever you interact with, so that you can get to the distortion, the energetic core inside of your biofield that might have been related to interaction you had with an authority figure as you were growing up, and be able to kind of clean that out completely by becoming aware of it, so that it doesn't keep playing out through other scenarios. I hope this is helpful, and I do think that if you feel like you have no clue about what your root cause of those undesirable scenarios might be, astrocartography can kind of shed some light on that. So I would recommend looking at the ruler of the house that has your Chiron in it. For example, in me, the ruler of the house that has Chiron in it is Aries, and Aries is governed by Mars. So I will look at my astrocartography map and look for where the Mars lines are and kind of recall my experience in those places. And oftentimes, those were the places where the initial wounding happened. And that wounding was causing distortion in my divine blueprint, and then that distortion gets played out even if I had left those places. So that might be one way of really reviewing the life that you've lived and kind of pinpointing where you might have gotten these distortions that seem to be playing out through any of your current interactions. All right, I hope this is helpful, and feel free to message me with questions or any requests for topics, and I hope to talk to you soon. Have a wonderful day.